One night, she served a bloody steak and told me that it was healthier that way. I was not a fan of rare meat, but what bothered me the most was what I saw in the mashed potato. There were hair and nails, and it reeked. When I tried to excuse myself, she got mad and forced me to sit still. I ended up eating all of it despite my will not to. As if some dark force entered my body and forced me to. All the while I was devouring her concoction, she was laughing hysterically. My mom was a fine young woman who fell in love with my dad. She was beautiful, kind, smart, and almost perfect in all aspects. She could have been the best in her chosen field, but she chose to stay and support my dad. My dad, on the other hand, was a normal guy who had mediocre ambitions in life. He loved art and dreamed to become an artist someday. But he lacked talent and grit, so he stayed as a clerk for decades. I remember my parents being happy during their first few years together. Those years were golden until my dad cheated on my mom. Since then, my mom got so depressed that she denied any light bulbs in the house. Our house reeked of urine and poop, while my dad's new family enjoyed trips to Disneyland. I saw how my mother changed from sweet to bitter, then to nothing at all. She stopped going out and taking showers. She lost her friends, her relatives' affection, but not my love. I loved my mother for what she was, and for that, I hated my father for hurting her, for leaving us, and for becoming happy with someone else. Our life became stagnant chaos where home became a rancid refuge. But it was okay because I was with her, and she was with me. When I was 18, I got into an accident and I was in a coma for a year. When I woke up, all I could ever think about was my mother. Where was she? Was she fine? Who was with her? But she was alright. Even better, when I got back home, the house was spotlessly clean and bright. All the light bulbs were back and she was happy again. She would prepare sumptuous meals every day and every night. Our house was like an open banquet. For the longest time, my mom is finally happy and I am happy. But there were a few strange things that I noticed after I woke up from a coma. First, although the house was clean, it smelled of sulfur. I asked my mother about it, and she told me it was one of the cleaning agents she used. Second, my mother had darker teeth and gums, as well as black nails. I thought maybe it was because of her poor hygiene during her depressive state, so I never really asked her about it. Third, we always had meat even though she never goes out to buy some. And lastly, her smile. Her face would slightly morph into something else I am too afraid to continue looking at. But she was my mother, and I loved her. So everything's okay. That's what I thought. One night, she served a bloody steak and told me that it was healthier that way. I was not a fan of rare meat, but what bothered me the most was what I saw in the mashed potato. There were hair and nails, and it reeked. When I tried to excuse myself, she got mad and forced me to sit still. I ended up eating all of it despite my will not to. As if some dark force entered my body and forced me to. All the while I was devouring her concoction, she was laughing hysterically and calling random names. I can still remember the sensation of gnawing on those crispy nails and fibrous hair. That night, I locked myself in my room and wondered whose nails and hair were those. As much as I want to vomit, my body would not want me to. As if something has left a clenching fist inside me and I lost all control over my body. Every day became hell as my mother would force me to eat disgusting insects and human body parts. Whose parts I did not know as my mind failed to fathom the dreadful situation I was in back then. Every night, she would visit me in my room and whisper incomprehensible words. She would sing, laugh, and cry. Eventually, our house was stripped of its immaculate cleanliness and revealed its true nature. I was living in a dilapidated house, only eating insects and dirt, with occasional raw meat on the side. It was an atrocious nightmare. I eventually got sick from all the objects that I've digested. Patrolling police found me and brought me to the hospital. I later found out that my mother died weeks after my accident. My father's new family also went missing. No one has heard of them ever since. Some said that I was enchanted by a demon. Others believed that it was my mother's pitiful soul who kept me in trance. They had to operate and remove all the nasty objects in my stomach so I could survive. Up to this day, I am not entirely sure what happened back then. But one thing is for sure. Even after her death, my mother wanted to take care of me. Even if it meant she'd asked a demon to do it on her behalf. I still miss my mom. But that was a long time ago. I rarely talk about that story, but since you asked, would you like your steak bloody? It's healthier that way.